in the pool last weekend. But right now, our next guest, I don't know, he's kind of delaying things. He's trying to run out the clock here, I think. Come on down, Jim Atterholt, ladies and gentlemen. Town council member Jim Atterholt.
He brought lollipops.
Thank you very much.
Brought candy.
I was explaining on Facebook, Jim, that I went to Walmart, and it's quite unusual. I don't buy candy, but I was going down the candy aisle and just grabbing candy for the kids at Bay Oaks, and it's a different experience buying candy. I know you do it all the time, but
yeah,
it was kind of the first time I've ever bought bags and bags of candy. We don't really buy a lot of candy for Halloween, do you?
No, we don't. Event for you?
Yeah, it really was.
The average age of our condo where I live is about 80, so we don't get a lot of trick-or-treaters where we're at.
Probably not.
So you don't get the older people in their 80s going up and down the hallway, knocking on doors?
Not the ones who are intentionally knocking.
I got you.
We get some people wandering, but yes. Yeah.
And not on Halloween.
And not throughout the year, 365.
And I'll say that he brought the lollipops. Wasn't that the commercial for those lollipops? How many licks does it take to get
to the center?
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
How long ago was that commercial?
A long time ago.
And it used to be if you found an Indian chief on your wrapper, you'd get a free lollipop. That was way, way back.
No kidding.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't think they still do it anymore.
Don't think they probably do.
That's very creative marketing. You would think they would pick up on that and somebody else would do it. Now, now,
Jim, wait a minute. I want to say that. Guess what they just bought?
A sweater, a Christmas sweater.
We bought. Well, we actually purchased it a while ago, and because of the supply chain issues, we're waiting for it. But we went to Beach Pottery on 2 separate occasions, and they just don't have pots there. They have this furniture it's like a recycled plastic, but super nice, super heavy duty. It's called Daisy Decor. I'm looking at my wife, Daisy Decor. It weighs a ton, so the wind doesn't blow it around.
Right.
And it's indestructible.
It is. I think they said it's like lasts at least 20 years.
Yeah. And the weird thing is, you think about heavy plastic furniture, it's super comfortable.
And it's very stylish.
Yeah,
I mean, and there's so many colors. What color did you guys get?
We have a aqua blue. Yeah. And a little bit of a stone color, kind of a mix.
Nice.
But you can put it out on the lanai, and the wind can't blow it, and the weather doesn't. And we have some around our swimming pool area at the condo, and it lasts forever. It doesn't fade. It's a great little side business for them at the Beach Pottery place because it's really nice.
Nice.
Very
there
nice.
You go.
Nice extra plug in there after just reading the ad. So thank you.
At the Beach Theater.
Yes. Getting all
the Many Saints of Newark is out there, which is the new Sopranos movie.
Oh, I didn't even know there was a Sopranos movie out.
The Sopranos movie is out. Started on October 1st. It came out on HBO Max as well, same time, which is sort of weird. And we watched it last night. I'm embarrassed to say we watched it on HBO first, but we are going back to the Beach Theater because that's one you want to see on the big screen.
Yeah.
I want to be really careful because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But it's a prequel to the Sopranos. So it's Tony's earlier life. Growing up.
Who plays Tony because he's not alive?
Tony's son plays
Tony.
Kidding. His actual son in real life.
Gandolfini's son.
He's wonderful. Yeah, Gandolfini's son. He's wonderful. Kind of takes him at about maybe age circa 5 to 8 to all the way through high school. Wow. And there's a lot of other subplots that go on. It's just great to get that Sopranos fixed again.
Is the guy from I can't remember his name, from Springsteen's band in that at all?
He is portrayed as a younger man.
I see,
by
but
a different
he's not
actor.
in it.
Yes,
yeah.
But he's clearly in it spirit.
Got
yes.
it.
And I want to thank you for your including us in the Friday thing because we ended up spending.
Oh my gosh! Let me tell this story.
All last night.
So you send out to.
I never get to finish the story.
You send out like a link to a music video. Is it always? It's always a video, right?
It's always a video. It always has to be. It has to be a live video of past. Usually this is a group circa 60s, 70s, or early 80s, and it has to be unique and no lip syncing, a live performance, and it has to be sort of inspirational or put a smile on your face.
So yesterday you sent out the link with the Highwaymen. Now, don't say who it is. I would like to know if anyone in the audience actually knows who the Highwaymen are. That would be interesting because we went online and we were just searching.
We had it on the TV.
We had Johnny Cash, who's obviously I'm giving one away. He's just an amazing. Well, he's everybody knows he was.
Your audience will know
talent.
Everyone in the Highwaymen once they're told who they are, but the names are household names.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we're watching Johnny Cash and in doing the prison that he was in, the Folsom
Folsom Prison. That's
and-
a great live
yes,
concert.
yeah,
There's a lot
yeah.
of good video, and
Yeah.
those folks incarcerated there were so encouraged. I think it was like 1967. He went to Folsom, I think.
Yeah.
And June Carter Cash, his wife, was
Yep.
with him,
Yep.
and it was such a cool concert because he was right there amongst the inmates, and they were. I mean, there was not a lot of security there.
Were
No.
you in prison at that time, or you had been out already?
Fortunately, it's on video. And I think I was about maybe 8. Yeah.
Right. And shoot, now I
Yeah,
forgot
we
what I
had
was
to
gonna
go
say.
back and I just trying to figure his age because we saw one video when he was very advanced age.
Oh yeah,
and
they
then
showed
we-
his final performance.
Yeah, that was
Johnny
rough.
Cash?
Yeah,
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 yeah.
His voice was still good, but his body, it was tough. But
I had a chance to-
1932, I think it was when he was
There's
born.
a great
so-
movie on Johnny Cash. Forget the name of it. You could just Google it. But I had a chance, Brett and I had a chance to see Johnny Cash in Indianapolis at a small club. And we were
No
up on
kidding.
the balcony, and June Carter Cash and the whole family was there. And it was, what a great show. What a presence, stage presence.
So did you hear who's going to be at halftime of the Super Bowl?
No.
Eminem, Dr. Dre. It's going to be a whole rap thing.
Interesting.
And so it's everybody from LA. Well, Eminem's from Detroit, but it was Dr. Dre, 2 other rapper kind of thing. So it'll
I've got to say, Eminem's got some good running songs.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
great 8 Mile.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent to run to.
So anyway, let's get to.
All right.
Thank you for coming on, Jim.
Happy to
It
be
was,
here, sure,
Yes,
yeah.
I mean, thank you.
So
and
that was the easy part.
That's fine.
So
Bring it.
as I said to Dan last week, Dan Allers, it wasn't a good week for the A team, being Allers and Atterholt, when it came to the community policing. Let's start with the community policing. First, what are your thoughts on how it ended?
Well, can I do my little filibuster premise first? Because as much as it appears that there's discord at the council and in the town, the Renaissance is moving forward. And I want people to be encouraged because there is disagreement on it. Not that these are not important issues. They are important issues. But just if I could just reiterate what's going on this right now, unimpeded, which is so encouraging. The county has put $80 million into Estero Boulevard, new sidewalks, bike lanes. Everybody sees it when they're driving it, new road resurfacing, stormwater systems for Estero. $80 million. The town has put in $60 million, new water lines, new stormwater dynamics for the side streets. Huge investment. The county's going to put in $55 million for a new bridge on the south end. That's going to be tremendous. You're going to have the state put in $6.2 million at the foot of the bridge. Now, that's got some challenges, but it's a huge infusion of capital into our community. The private sector is infusing capital in this. Margaritaville, you saw this beautiful crane, doing the work on the Margaritaville this morning with the sunrise. I mean, 254 new rooms, 4 new restaurants, beautification of the downtown area. It's tremendous. The town's doing Bay Oaks, a new community center, Bayside Park, and then where we're sitting right now, Times Square is going to be completely renovated. Very cool. All over the next 2 years. So with all the stuff that's been going on at the council, none of that has been impeded. I think the council's pretty unified and all of that moving forward. So let's go to your question now. But I just want to lay that foundation that things are promising on this island. In fact, they're more than promising. I think in 2 years, this island will be so transformed in a positive way that I think people should be very encouraged by that. Anyways, community policing. So, it's a tough one. I don't think it's a tough one. I don't fully understand the opposition. I can explain it, I think. I think we talk a lot about Bonita Springs and their community police program. They've got, I don't know how many, 20 now that they've paid for. But I don't know if that's the best comparison. Sanibel's an interesting dynamic to me. They have their own police force, which I don't advocate for. I don't think we need our own police force. But they've got 24, some people say 26 police officers in Sanibel. So that means, let's just say it's 24. So let's say they've got, again, they may have 2 shifts at 12 hours, or they may have 3 shifts of 8 hours. Let's say they have 3 shifts of 8 hours. That means 8 officers are on the island patrolling. And obviously there's going to be more at the daytime. So it's probably going to be larger than that. But let's just say worst case scenario, there's 8. Right now, in the middle of the week in Fort Myers Beach, we have 2 officers patrolling our island. Now, same population, Sanibel, Fort Myers Beach. And I would argue Fort Myers Beach is a lot more livelier than Sanibel. So why do we have 2 officers and they have 8? Either they are way over-policed or we're way under-policed. we ought to figure that out. And, the sheriff, it's challenging at times because I met privately with two captains, a lieutenant. We met for 2 hours talking about community policing. They were telling me the combined experience of these three officers was like 100 years, much of it on Fort Myers Beach. These guys were telling us how critical community policing was, how critical some of the challenges were on the island, how we needed additional officers. And then we get people show up to the council from the sheriff's office and say, hey, everything's fine. I'd bring my family here. It's the safest place in the world. Well, it makes it tough to make the argument when the sheriffs, and I understand why they can't say it's bad, but at the same time, they can help us a little bit.
When you met with the folks at the sheriff's department that you said you met with, did they say to you point blank that you needed them?
Point blank.
Okay.
They needed them.
Do you think they were selling you, or they said you needed them, or you felt like?
Well, so it was both. I mean, they were passionate about the island. They care about the island. They know the island from a law enforcement. Some of these guys had served on the island for 10, 20 years. Along with their other positions around the county and the sheriff's department. These are guys who really know their stuff. And so then they show up at the council meeting and say, oh, everything's fine here. Nothing to see, nothing to, it just seems odd to me. And I understand why some of my colleagues are frustrated by that. And so if the right things to do is to increase the amount of coverage for our island by the sheriff's department, we ought to have the sheriff come to the council, explain to us why 2 is enough. Now, obviously on the weekends and special events and holidays, we have more than that. But we need to see some data. I mean, our public safety committee studied this thing. We got really smart people on this public safety committee. They voted unanimously for it. So I'm missing something. Either we have.
Can I just ask do you think is it a financial thing? Is that the rub?
I just think for some of my colleagues, and I want to speak for them, but I think it's a principled thing. They said, hey, we generate a lot of money for the county. The county ought to step up and provide additional presence on our island. And yes, that's true. But if they say, no, we're not going to, then we need to do something, right?
And I think the other, I don't know, this may be obtuse, but you were just talking about all of the things that are going on here. And you mentioned time and time again, this sort of shared responsibility financially between the county and the town. It would seem like this might fall under that same.
I think that's fair, especially when we, and I don't know that we really should have our own police department. It ought to be a partnership. And so we ought to be reaching out to the sheriff. We ought to be reaching out to the county commissioners. We ought to be communicating this back and forth, not only at the sheriff's level, but at staff level. The county commissioners need to be involved. We need to see some analysis. I mean, the sheriff ought to come and just explain to us what's going on this island and show us his data, show us why the presence that they have here is appropriate, and why Sanibel has literally, I mean, they've got 25 officers. We've got 2. I mean, they got 25 full-time officers all the time. Now,
one more thing. I just wonder if when you look at the calls, the sheriff's calls by the incidents by area, if their case could be made that those would really go down if there was a greater presence here to sort of nip it in the bud and catch it before it becomes a problem where you're having to not wait. I know the response time is phenomenal, but I mean, if you could bring down the number of calls for additional folks.
Kim, get your bell ready. That's an excellent point because what the 2 captains and the lieutenant said to me was, Jim, the response is not the issue.
Right.
It's to be preventative, be proactive, and have that presence. So you tell me if people see a sheriff's vehicle going by their property, their business, the park on a regular basis, you tell me that doesn't have a deterring effect. It has to.
It was suggested at the council meeting by Mr. Murphy that if you gave us 2, we'll get 2. What was your first reaction to that? What were you thinking?
Well, I think, it's okay to have that conversation, but I think it ought to be a conversation we have directly with the sheriff. Let's have him come before the council respectfully, have him present why they do what they do, why there's only 2 people here during a regular week period. And how additional law enforcement would be helpful. Why can't they step up? If they can't, he needs to make the case why Fort Myers Beach should step up. We ought to have a conversation. We're all adults in the room. We could figure this out.
Was that ever followed up on?
I don't know that it has been followed up on.
Is Fort Myers Beach safe or not safe?
Well, that's a unique. It's a tough question to answer because we have no data to work with. We see the police runs. But the preventative impact of these community police officers who are assigned full-time, same people who get to know the community, get to know the businesses, get to walk through the neighborhoods. Everybody knows their name. To have them be present and be sort of proactively seeking out where there's hot spots and criminal activity and using that intelligence to convey it to the rest of the sheriff's department and use it as a preventative measure. I don't know how you put a price on it, and how do you measure that, Ed? How do you measure that additional police presence?
So is it safe to you or not safe? I just want to know what you.
But when you do that, it's not an either or thing, and
I
want
to know if his opinion is whether he thinks Fort Myers Beach is safe.
It's about being safer. It's not a continuum. It's not an either or thing.
I get that part.
Could Fort Myers Beach be safer? Yes, I think they could be. Yeah.
Well, every community could be safer with more police.
Well, but
I'm trying to see if you think it's safe now.
But that's the debate now. We see this thought. Well, we shouldn't have a higher level of security than other areas. Well, it happens right now in America. People hire private security firms to protect their homes, to protect their businesses. Some people hire security guards. Now, should they have to? No, but they choose to because they want a safer level. And so, it's a personal preference. I think the people of this island have said we'd like it to be safer. We want a bigger police presence. Nobody's bashing the sheriff's department. We love the people that come here.
Phenomenal.
Everybody's great. So, but could it be a heightened presence? I think it could be, and I think it would have an impact.
So you on the public safety committee, you had they did all that research. They really dug into the issue. They had some sheriff's representatives in front of them. They recommended 6-0 that you hire at least 2 community police officers. The former police officer from Ohio, Jim Nichols, said 4 is the right number, yet they were totally ignored. Why do the committees waste their time like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think the advisory committees waste their time. I think I heard those guys and gals on public safety. I've heard them on the lighting issue with the Marine Resource Task Force. They've provided better information than the consultant has, in my opinion, on the lighting issue for Estero Boulevard. So, and I think
give them one.
There are times that the advisory committees could have a disagreement with the council, but to say that they're not listened to, I'm not sure that's fair. Was I disappointed that their 6-0 recommendation was not heeded? Yes, but I think it's a little much, even for the people I disagree with on community policing, to say that they were ignored, because I mean, these people are very respected people in our community and public safety, and they put a lot of time and effort into this thing, and people hear them, and I can't. You have to ask them how they feel about it, but I can't imagine to say that they disregarded. I mean, they certainly didn't agree with it, but they to disregard that, I think, is a little bit harsh.
Okay.
I think the other thing, though, is that they put out, they extended a thing to the community. They got community input.
They did a survey.
So they did a survey. Thank you. I'm like losing my mind here. And so that survey based a lot of their decisions on that, and that's representative of what the community.
Well, the survey, to be fair, the survey was criticized right from the beginning from the town manager, who said that some of the responses were coming from out of town, which I think is also acceptable because people come from out of town and spend half the year here. So they poo-pooed it right from the beginning.
Yeah, I think, again, my biggest question that as I put my head on the pillow is, why does Sanibel, and I don't want to be like Sanibel, but it is fascinating to me that an island with a population roughly the same size as ours has 25 or 26, 24 police officers full-time, and we have 2, with the exception of, again, special events and weekends.
Is this a dead issue, or is it going to come up again?
I don't think it's a dead issue at all. In fact, the money's there in the budget. It's $230,000 a year. And so it's a modest cost to, in essence, double our police force. We're, in essence, again, not weekends, not special events. We're, in essence, doubling our police force for $230,000 a year. To me, that's a pretty good investment, especially with this renaissance going on. We want people here to see a police presence, feel safe, and feel good about Fort Myers Beach, and that's a big part of it.
So
I just wonder, maybe
skip ahead, dear.
All right, but maybe the parking, additional parking fees could go towards.
That's the next one. Good segue.
Well, I mean, if you're raising the rates,
back up a little. You got to lay the facts for the new folks.
All right,
the town council voted to increase the rates in parking from $3 to $5, and also the vacation rental application went from $50 to $300. I don't think you were in favor of either one.
We voted against the budget. Dan Ehlers and I voted against the budget. But I did offer an amendment in the interest of trying to find a compromise to take some of the parking fee increase dollars and have it also pay for community policing. It could have paid for the parking app, could have covered community policing. We still would have some additional money for cost overruns of the 3 projects we talked about earlier. And that's fine. My colleagues chose not to do that. But, so I voted against the budget because I think community policing should have been part of that budget. So, but the so the money is there in the budget right now. It's just a question of whether, and I pray, quite frankly, I pray that we don't have another shooting or stabbing or something that causes this rediscussion. Hopefully we can have a good conversation, get some data from the sheriff, get public safety back engaged again, the advisory committee, and continue to talk about this. And hopefully we'll be able to get something done on it. I really think that it's not that heavy of a lift.
I think to your point, or at least what I heard from your point in all of that discussion too, was that not giving enough time for the public to weigh in on those issues.
And that's a whole another issue. Now you mentioned the short-term rental. Those fee increases, according to the author of that proposal, will go directly to, and again, we use the term affordable housing or workforce housing, and he uses those interchangeably. They're two different things, but that will go specifically to that goal. It has to by law, as I understand it. The parking fee increase apparently can be used for a wide variety of purposes, including community policing.
You know, part of the parking dilemma is, and we had people sitting here this morning, it's confusing because you have Lee County owns a Lynn Hall Park. It's not confusing to everybody, but it's confusing because that's $2. They thought it was going up to $5. Then you have the parking on the street that you own, the parking under the bridge, what's left of it that you own. And there's, so how are you going to educate the people? I know you have a PIO, but
this is where this parking app concept comes into play. If somebody comes over that bridge and they can not only see where the spots are, but which ones were open and which ones were filled, you can have a lot more efficient disbursement of traffic and hopefully reduce some of the congestion.
Jim,
instead of having people wandering around looking for a parking
spot. Can we be
spot.
serious?
It's just part of it. It's not the solution.
But people are not going to use a parking app.
I don't know. Ed, the next generation,
I don't know.
is different. I'm with my age group, maybe not. Some will. I see a lot of my age group savvy to all this stuff. But the next generation, my kids, they're hot all over this stuff. Have you ever used a parking app? I mean,
all right.
Have you ever used a parking app?
My kids do all the time.
The app that we had the woman on who created it for free back a while ago, she also had like the trolley schedule and that kind of stuff. Now, when I went down to Key West, I absolutely used their app to find where the trolleys were, see when the next trolley was coming.
Story. They're talking about a parking app that says this.
But what I'm saying is,
how are you going to manage what spot is open, what lot is full?
Requires a lot more
infrastructure. Wait a minute. I talked to one of the largest vendors in Florida who does this, and he said this thing is easy. The technology's there. It's not that expensive, and it's very doable. To get real time. They use cameras now that can detect when the spots are open or closed.
Well, you're getting extra cameras, right?
Well, the cameras are unfortunately not used for that, but they could be. And so the parking app technology is there, and I do think the next generation, Zed, I just watched my kids.
But this beach isn't a next generation beach; it's an us generation beach,
coming.
and people come over the bridge and they will snoop around the parking lots to see somebody pulling out so they can get in because they want to get as close. I mean,
but we have to try things. We have to do something. We can't just sit there and just gripe about it. We've got to have solutions.
I didn't agree with raising the fee for a parking app.
Let me give you some hope. In the last month, I've met with or had conversations with two different groups that are proposing additional parking right over the bridge, the North Bridge. One has 135 spots. That was actually in the media. That's at the old Shrine Club. And another group, very serious group, is proposing a potential parking garage.
Great idea.
Of 400 people.
Where would that be?
400 spots. I'm sorry.
I
can't say yet.
Close though.
They're still very close.
Nice.
Within walking distance.
That's the answer.
They'll have their own shuttle. And they'll also be connected to Leetran. It's the answer. 400 spots. The town total has 350 spots for the whole island. This is 400 spots.
So let's just hypothetically say a parking garage with 400 spots is built. Will you lower the fee from $5 back to $2?
Well, I mean, I'm sort of in the minority in all this. Yeah.
Well, whatever. Well, it should be lowered to 2 if they have 400 parking spots, right? I mean, it's just, but that I don't think that government really ever goes down.
Well, oddly enough, the parking rate increase helps the developers of these parking garages because it makes them more competitive.
Good. So let's move on to the lighting. I want to make sure we talk about the lighting. What was your conclusion? What were you thinking when you saw the final presentation, months and months of research, up to $180,000? I don't know what the final bill was, but they could have gotten paid up to $180,000 for their contract. We're talking about town lighting, and they didn't make a recommendation to the council. What was your thought?
My initial thought was thank heavens for our advisory committees, because between public safety and the Marine Resource Task Force, They did tremendous amount of research and homework on this and clarified the issues for the consultant. The consultant, they claim when I asked the question, what's your recommendations? They said, well, we don't make recommendations. I almost fell out of my chair, but I was so caught off guard by that. I didn't really, I was so shocked to hear that, but they in essence did make a recommendation. Their recommendation was this dual light. The dual light, which both public safety said, listen, we want a uniform solution year round for the island. That was against their recommendation. Marine Resource Task Force said we want an amber solution. So it was against their recommendation. So the people on our island who actually spent a lot of time researching this, the consultant completely disregarded with a solution that's not even approved by FWC, by FDOT. So it was an odd of touch recommendation. So I was kind of stunned by it all, to be honest with you.
Do you feel like the Fort Myers Beach taxpayers got their money's worth with that consultant?
I think at this point, no, but it's potential as it gets more technical. I think hopefully they can redeem themselves, because we're going to probably have to make two decisions hopefully at the next council meeting or next M&P meeting. We're going to have to determine whether we want an amber solution or a dual light or a white light or a mixed solution. And it's kind of an easy answer, because FWC, Florida Fish and Wildlife, has said we're not going to accept anything but an amber solution.
Right.
So they've kind of decided that for us. And then the other question will be, do we want to own these lights ourselves, or do we want Florida Power and Light to own them? Trust me, I got a lot of experience in the utility sector from before I came down here. We don't want to manage and own our own light system. They're subject matter experts. They've got economies of scale, and they also have service agreements with other communities, other states. If we have a hurricane, they could bring in outside resources to triage our island to help get the lights back on. So those two questions I think could be easily answered, and then we have to do a photometric study of what's the cost going to be, where do the poles need to be. That's where the technical expertise of this consulting firm, I think, could come in handy. In terms of building a consensus and narrowing down our choices, I think our advisory committees did a lot more than our consultant did.
So being that, for those that don't know, Estero Boulevard is owned by the county. Who's the point person negotiating with the county on the town's behalf?
That's a good question. I
don't
know if there's a lot of dissension there. The county's made it clear to us that they're going to pay for the lighting for the various crosswalks on Estero Boulevard. And they've basically said, if you want anything more than we currently have now, you guys are on your own. You're going to have to pay for it. And the town wants better lighting, so we're going to have to pay for it.
I understand that, but the town could, the county could also say, nah, we don't like those lights.
Yeah, but the amber solutions that we're looking at now, one of which has already been approved by FP&L, the other one I just found out yesterday or 2 days ago that it's been requested. This is this Visionaire light that's much more powerful amber light is already currently being looked at by FP&L to be approved. So it's already in the process. We get that light. That's a light that's already being used by the county on our island. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to be a solution that they're going to be comfortable with.
It's going to be amber. There's going to be amber lights.
I'll be shocked if it's not amber. And quite honestly, I think it should be amber.
And the town bill for that would be what, estimated?
We really don't know it.
In the millions?
$1 million and change or more. I don't know.
Because you need more poles.
Depending on which amber light we get, it'll determine how many poles we need. And again, this is where this photometric study could really be helpful. I just don't know yet.
Is it safe to say that going from white to amber is out?
Yeah, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Agency basically said a white light solution is unacceptable. So you can't do it because you've got liability issues.
Don't you think it's strange that you're really doing this for just one turtle? Because only one turtle out of millions of turtles actually makes it to the water.
1 out of 1,000.
But they can swim 60 miles an hour.
I know. They can. Did you see?
Wow, now it's up to 60.
Did you see the SCCF tagged the turtle that they lost a couple of years ago, but then they found it in Key West, and now on their website you can track the turtle. That it's the coolest thing to see that they have a name for the turtle and everything, and those things can fly. I want to get on the back of one of those turtles, dear, when we get in the water someday.
That's completely illegal, and you would never do that.
Yeah, but in fairness, Ed, if you listen to Steve Johnson, who's very educated on all this stuff, it's more than just the turtles. It's the birds. It's the environment in general. But we don't even, we ought to be sensitive. We're a beautiful island. We're in the middle of a beautiful
Renaissance
state park.
It's a
beautiful area. So we got to be sensitive to that. But it's sort of a moot point anyways. But because we can't do anything but amber.
And I want to apologize to the turtle people. I was just joking. I'm sure they're going to suggest I have to go to some kind of turtle rehab or sensitivity class. We have a turtle at home. We're all about the turtles.
They've got sense of humor. It's fine. But I think that the island gets the fact that we've got to be turtle friendly. But I think you can find a solution that's also good for public safety. I mean, the current situation is so bad right now. It's going to be demonstrably better.
I will say I was in one place out west that had the amber lights, and I was driving. My personal preference would be that because it is easier on the eyes. It's a much more calming light. You're not getting black. I thought it was great, and I could see fine while I was driving.
Yeah.
So speaking out west, do you think this laundry guy is alive, or you think he killed himself?
Well, I mean, anybody who would do what he would do I would consider him a coward already. So taking his own life would be a sort of a cowardly way out of this. I have no idea, of course, but you know, he gets what he deserves.
Dog the Bounty Hunter's on the case, so we're all safe now.
I think he's doing that with his walker and his cane.
Yeah.
But good for Dog.
Yeah. So let's talk about the parking just real quick again. The parking under the bridge situation is starting to irk people a little bit because there's construction. There's nothing you can do about it. If you want to upgrade the area, you got to have construction, and there's construction going on over there, and it's been blocked off for quite a while, almost the whole year. And you guys are going to talk about extending that to the end of the year on Monday, and that's even though the spots aren't available to the public, you are getting the revenue from the contractor. So.
Well, it's not about money on this one. It's you've got people that do buy parking passes through the town, and that can park in these areas, and it is causing them some grief, particularly for employers in that area that are trying to find parking for their employees. But it's a staging area for water and stormwater projects that we have to get done before Margaritaville comes in. So, I mean, we've got the next year and a half. It's going to be challenging because there's going to be a lot of construction going on, but that's to me, a blessing in many ways. Now, to offset, I think some of the challenges that you just, I think, appropriately referenced, because I've heard from constituents on this, the town is going to be opening up, I think today, 35 new spots at Town Hall. And I think you'll be able to use your parking pass to park there at no charge.
Cool.
Because you buy an annual parking pass. So 35 new spots there. And again, it's a little bit of a hoof, but it's definitely walkable. The tram. And so, I mean, we're going to have to kind of wrestle through this together as a community. And
listen, you made it through the Estero Boulevard,
Yes.
So this should be a walk in the park.
Riding the bike on that road this morning, even though it's dark,
It's spectacular.
it's the paint is great. The bike lanes are perfect. They don't need. I know this might not go over well with Dan and those guys. They don't need to be painted green. I think the bike lanes, the way they are just fine. And I don't know if it's more for the driver, but when I ride in a bike lane, I don't need to have it green or anything like that. I just like to ride in the bike lane.
I think it's for the driver. I ride a lot. We ride our bikes. We have this low tide app that tells us when low tide is, and we'll take our bikes from the south end on the beach all the way down to Bowdish Point, right through Bowdish Point, then come back through Times Square and then back to the south end. And when you're right. The bike rider doesn't necessarily need those green markings, but as a driver, when I see those things, I'm thinking, oh, the bikes. I forgot that bike could be. I'm always going to be sensitive that there could be a bike presence when I'm turning. If I see a green little marking there, I'm going to check my mirror a little bit more.
I agree with that. And when there's an intersection or something like that, and the other thing that is always amusing to me is that sometimes the bike lanes will have arrows in them or actual paintings of bikes. And they're more of a nuisance to the biker because they're elevated off the flat surface.
But I think that's because they're reflective.
No, it's just to make sure that the people are going the right way. And some people ride the wrong way, surprisingly. And so but it's elevated off I know we're getting off the subject, but as a biker, you don't want when you're riding fast, you don't want that thing to knock you off a bike. It could be because it's elevated off the ground. I mean, I know you've never gone as fast as I can go, so you don't really know what it's like to go down. Well, you do know what it's like to go down on a bicycle. But anyway, on to the next thing. Let's talk about Bayside Park.
I like when Kim takes the heat. This is great. This is great. Yeah.
We ran into you at Bayside Park, the old Bayside Park, because they had the big Songwriters Fest going on. Oh, yeah.
Another great event for the beach. You guys were great in helping to highlight that. Great artists all over town.
Yeah.
What a great, especially for the off season, that and Roar by the Shore, all these events going on. The Save the Arches event today. I I mean, there's so much activity in the off season that we really ought to encourage.
It's so nice too to finally see the off season shrinking.
Yes.
The more events you come up with, the more people come down, and then it would be great for all the businesses on the island to have no off season. So the Bayside Park project seems like it's going to be first.
It is going to be first. It's had some challenges because the initial bids that went out came back over double what they originally were thought because of the supply chain issues and the inflation issues because of COVID. So the town manager is trying to value engineer those bids and see if he can get some economies going. We're pre-buying some equipment. I think you mentioned that in your newsletter. And that's very legitimate because we can lock in prices right now that we're going to eventually lose that price advantage if we don't lock them in. So, but I did ask the town manager about this, and he said with all the rebidding and the value engineering going on, they hope to break ground by the first of the year on Bayside.
Okay.
All right. So the other thing I want to make sure I brought up was the dune walkover. This has been going on for years now, and at the time it started, you were on the LPA. And the LPA voted unanimously to approve the dune walkover for Eddie Rood and Kurt Cromer. And it's all kinds of litigation going on now. How much has the town spent so far on that project?
Let me set the stage here because you everything you said was correct.
You didn't like the way I set the stage?
No, you were absolutely fine. You were absolutely correct. But let me just give you an addendum. I was on the LPA and I voted for it on the LPA, and it was unanimous. But there was something with the notification of that issue. The opponents of the dune walkover were not notified, or they were unaware of it, and they didn't show up. So we heard
who the opponents are. Who are the
opponents of the dune walkover?
Who were
a lot of citizens.
Okay.
The Audubon Society and a lot of other folks who live here on the island. And so nobody showed up. So we never heard any dissenting views. We never heard the other side. So. And that was right in the middle of the election cycle. So I get elected, and I'm in the process, the previous council, I get a chance to listen to the debate. I heard both sides. And after listening to both sides, I thought the opponents of the dune walkover, I thought their arguments were persuasive. And when I got on the council, and I did change my vote, but it wasn't like I flipped. We never heard the other side when I was on the LPA. If you go back and listen to that hearing, there was only one side presented. Nobody's fault. It's just the reality of the situation. So, and having heard and talked to a lot of people involved in this, I don't think it's in the public interest for the town of Fort Myers Beach to support that walkover. So, but to your question, I asked the town attorney this the other day. He said, this has been going on for over 5 years. A lot of the cost was in previous councils when there was previous litigation. Said it was around $300,000 that has been spent thus far. Now, that being said, it's important to know that the town is not in litigation with these two gentlemen right now. They're in litigation with the state of Florida. We are in litigation with one of the gentlemen on an ADA claim that he has filed. Mm-hmm. And those legal costs are covered by the Florida League of Cities. We're a member of the Florida League of Cities, and they have a legal team there that defends their members. And so they've a little bit of a dogfight over there. And they've got so those costs, there's no cost to the town to defend against that ADA lawsuit.
Right.
So what I would say to folks, instead of just who are curious about the issue, go over to the south end of the beach and go for a walk along the beach. Go all the way to the bridge there, walk along that beach. It's open to the public. Walk through the critical wildlife area, and you determine whether you want. It's not a dune walkover. It's a bridge over a large body of water. This concept of a dune walkover is silly. And you determine whether their private bridge over this body of water that's so beautiful back there, so unintruded upon, you determine whether that's in the town interest of Fort Myers Beach. We have 3 preserves of this island, in essence, small: Bowditch, Matanzas, and the critical wildlife area. Everything else is developed. We're arguing about redevelopment, which is fine. But can we just leave a few areas here undeveloped, just so people can enjoy the?
But Jim, some of the stuff that you left out includes the fact that they do have a right to access to the beach from their home, don't they?
Well, their access was through a neighbor prior. And the neighbor put up a fence.
But they do. That was access, but there
was an access to their neighbor's property. The neighbor then, once they changed the high tide line, the neighbor said no more, which I thought was unfair and unfortunate. But that was the neighbor's right.
Sure.
So I can't. I'm not going to argue all the minutiae of this thing because it's going to be in court if it's not already. And so I just think you got to look at that area.
But the homeowners claim that they have enough proof to show that they own that property behind there, and that that there's a chance that the critical wildlife area will be wiped
Impacted.
out.
Well, our town attorney tells me otherwise.
Okay.
And that's a fair conversation. It's America. They have a right to litigate this. I just happen to disagree with this being in the public interest of these two gentlemen and their property. We've got a beautiful nature area back there. So few nature areas on this island. Everything's so developed. I think we got to do everything we can to preserve it. I think I'm going to fight to do that.
They also said that if they were allowed to, now they're not talking about building their walkover or bridge, whatever you call it, over the and I'm not arguing for anybody's case. They're talking about they moved it around so that it wasn't anywhere where it was going to be over, and it was going to be of use to their neighbors, not just them. They were allowing their neighborhood to use it, so there's a limited amount of public use for it, and they didn't want to be liable for the entire community or the entire beach being able to walk over the boardwalk into their backyard. If somebody got hurt or something, they'd be liable for it. So there are other facts in there too.
That's fair. But I would encourage people to walk back there. The body of water back there is huge.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's arguing that
bridge.
But I think that the downside would be if they wipe it out. That'd be awful.
Yeah, I don't know. You can't really wipe out the critical wildlife. It's a designation, and so
go ahead.
Yeah.
Am I missing something?
No. Can I ask? There was a question that was posed on the website on the newsletter. It has nothing to do with the dune walkover, but I want to ask you that because it was under something specific to you. So the question is from Melanie Matthews: what's the timeline for beach restoration in the Leonardo Arms area?
Well, that's a great. I live in that area.
It's so. Well, let's ring it for Melanie.
Let's ring it for Melanie. Yeah, because I actually read that on the website.
Oh, you did?
It's
Okay.
part of your newsletter. It's a great question. Leonardo Arms. If anybody, again, if you're walking in that south area, take a walk past Leonardo Arms. The erosion there, for reasons that are somewhat mysterious, but nature's strange along that part of the island. Some areas are accreting, where our friends that have the dune walkover, aspiring dune walkover, that's actually growing. That part of the beach is growing, getting wider. The area where I live, near where this lady lives, is tremendous erosion. Just the way the currents flow, it's just tearing. It's near the Wyndham, Estero Beach and Tennis Club. That area, it's just tearing out sand. And now Leonardo Arms is a unique situation because one of their condos is very close to the water, and it's getting to the point where it's almost right at the building's edge.
Oof.
And it's scary. So the town has done a nice job. We already have beach restoration approved for the north end, and everybody supports that. And now we've changed that license to expand it to the entire island so we can hit troubled spots. Part of the challenge on the south end is there's very little beach access. Now you could use this argument for your dune walkover, but there's very little beach access. That wouldn't be a public access, by the way. But that being said, they've asked Leonardo Arms and other condos, our condo, Estero Beach Tennis Club, to put a public access point between those condos, because that gives you points with the county, with the TDC, to get funding that would help you pay for restoration efforts. Those restoration efforts are extremely expensive. The county and the TDC fund is designed to help those, but they only help areas that have a lot of public access. So if we can add that additional public access, the town's been great in helping us with this, it would really increase the speed in which we can give them some help.
So what's the latest on the town's property problem with the school district by Bay Oaks? Is that all? That was all resolved?
I think it's pretty resolved. Yeah,
there was an interlocal that
they
they
got a
needed
new attorney there, and they had to relook
I
at
see.
everything. And our town's done a nice job of negotiating with them, and I think they worked all that out.
I heard Councilman Bill Veach say, I think I heard him say that all three projects are over budget already. Is that true?
Well, again, I think a lot of it's supply chain issues, inflation issues. You're seeing that. I mean, you talk to anybody who's trying to build a house right now that didn't have it all contractually fixed. I mean, the costs are skyrocketing.
Right.
We've got barges.
So is that a long way of saying yes?
Yes, I think
So
so.
how do you resolve that?
Well, again, you got to make tough choices. One of the reasons why Councilor Veach asked for these fee increases was to offset some of those overruns, potential overruns, and you got to make tough choices. I mean, that's it's just the reality of the time we're living in.
Now that you've been on the council for how long? Almost 2 years
About
now.
a year and a half.
Year and a
something
half.
like that.
What's your grade for the town manager?
What's my grade for the town manager? I think he's a very strong project person. I think, and I've said this publicly when we were trying to have a review of the town manager, I think his challenge is to build more relationships with the county. and the various county agencies and have a working, positive relationship. We have this love-hate relationship with the county, but the county has all the they hold all the cards.
It doesn't make any sense.
So we need to be loving on the county.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we're dependent upon them for so many different resources.
And they're so lovable.
Well, they are lovable. I mean, Ray Sandelli, how can you not love Ray Sandelli?
Doesn't make any sense.
And so, I mean,
makes no sense.
So we need to build those relationships. So, I mean, so you can't just give it an overall grade, but I think these guys, in terms of like taking on these projects and doing the value engineering and try to get the biggest bang for our buck on these 3 building projects, I think he's got a lot of experience in that area. He could be very effective. Again, communication skills. I still encourage him to come on this show. I tell him that privately. I'll tell you that publicly. I think he ought to be answering a lot of these questions as well. So communication-wise, I think there's room for improvement. But in terms of his skills and experience as a project guy, I mean, he's pretty effective.
People do bury the hatchet, He could come on the show and it'd be totally professional.
I hear an entree. I love it.
I would love to have him on the show and it'd be totally professional.
Beautiful. Well, I encourage that to happen. I really have encouraged it privately. And
thank you for coming on. Is there anything we missed? Did you have any questions for us?
Well, I don't know. Are we over time? Because one of the things you guys never talk about, you can occasionally talk about some of the events you do, and you're really an encouragement to a lot of people on this island in terms of, we get a lot of, we spend so much time fighting about masks and vaccinations and mandates. What we don't talk enough about is building up people's immunity through better health, through fitness, through diet. You got into it with one of your guests the other day talking about BMI. It was really interesting. Yeah. So you guys are in this business or have been in this business. You live this life. I mean, I just wanted to encourage you to talk more about things you do in your life and your diet.
We just had that fight last night. One of our many, because she thinks that people aren't interested in things that we do, like the races and things like that. And I think some of it could be boring, but when there's a funny thing that happens or something, or maybe it is interesting to somebody when they hear you run 8 miles, or sometimes it sounds like you're always talking about yourself too. So it's not that easy to get out there.
People need role models. They need to be encouraged, because I'm going to be 60 next year, and I'm on this crusade to try to, get back into really the best shape I can before I turn 60. And I got 10 more pounds. I got to lose. It's hard to lose those last 10.
For sure. When you get older.
So you lift a lot, and that muscle mass helps burn calories. And you guys, you're very careful about your diets. You do all different kinds of exercises. And I like to talk too about, Kim and I were just talking before the show briefly about the beach. People live on the beach. They have these things called swim buoys. You blow up this little buoy. It's maybe looks like a dachshund or a wiener dog, about that shape, and it trails behind you. It's a bright neon thing, and you can swim along the shoreline of the ocean. It's calm here.
And I would like to say that specifically today, you should come on down. The water is amazing.
It's like
up
glass.
to my neck. You can see all the way to the bottom. It is so crystal clear. The temperature of the water is perfect. You should come on out, bring your swim goggles. We were talking about that. I'm going to bring my swim goggles next week. And I think to your point about the exercise is, I think for you become one-dimensional. And I think you need to encourage everybody that maybe they're not going to do an 8-mile savage race, but they could get out and walk. They could get out and swim. They could go and hike. They can go and bike. Those things that are so accessible to everybody and so cheap. Get a pair of sneakers, get a pair of water shoes, and just go out and get into the air. As the weather is coming up now, we're getting low humidity, the temperatures are down. So yeah, I agree. And
that's putting that swim buoy on and putting your goggles on. It's not going to cost you more than $50. People who live along the beach is fine, but even if you have a beach access where you live in your residence, to walk over to the beach, go for a swim along the shoreline. The buoys are going to protect you from the various the boats and so forth. And you'll be far enough out with the swim buoy that you won't have to worry about fishermen or so forth. And it's a great way, low impact way to get exercise. And this bike riding, and you're like a serious bike rider, but Brett and I have these balloon tire bikes, no speeds, no brakes. And when the tide is low, it's like riding on a road out there. The sand is very flat and hard. And you can ride all the way down to Bowditch and back. And it's a great workout with the wind going on. But I mean,
and if you like wildlife, you're out there swimming. I've had the occasion where I had some manatees come up and swim next to me, and you've had dolphins following you.
Two dolphins trailing me the other day. Unfortunately, I didn't see them, but the people on the beach told me about it. so cool. And they're so friendly. There's the shark issue. People will catch an occasional shark, but they're little baby sharks. I
Right.
never hear anybody getting a shark attack issue on this side of the.
You've got Matanzas Pass Preserve to go walk through. You've got a lot of places down here to go and explore.
And on your
Lover's Key.
on your bike, when you're coming around Bowditch and you come through the park, I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you're on your
there's
blue
trails
there's
there.
a hill there. An actual hill in Florida that you can take on your bike.
It's
a
a
great
mound.
workout. Oh, it's a pretty good hill, I think. Pretty steep.
Thank you for coming on. To be continued on the fitness thing. I think maybe we have another separate show there, Jerry.
Yeah.
We'll
It's
sit
a
together
diet.
and
You guys could
about
talk
that.
more about diet. I
Yeah.
mean, just healthy things to do. And I mean, especially as you get older. I mean, this thing about
It's tough.
there's certain
It is.
lifts that you shouldn't do, certain lifts you should do.
Right.
You guys
Steve
need to
was
talk
asking me about it before the show. The plumber was asking me about it when he was
Yeah.
fixing the toilet that she broke the other day. So, Jim, thanks so much. You're
Good to
always
be
a
with
great
you guys.
guest.
So
We
much.
always
Pleasure.
appreciate you
Yep.
coming on. And I hope when your wife goes back and listens to the show, she doesn't criticize me about asking hard
Do you
questions.
see what hat
So-
she's wearing?
Yeah,
Yes.
she came out with the colors on, which was very nice. And Steve was
She's got
harassing
a
her the whole
great look
time.
right
yes,
now.
yes, yes.
She's
Are you going to do the Savage Race with us? Have you decided?
We were going to sheepishly approach you afterwards, but Brenda has to work that Saturday morning.
They have the race
Okay.
on Sunday too, so you can
Oh,
do Sunday.
darn, we can't figure that out. We'll have to figure
she's
out.
working the whole weekend.
She is now. Yeah.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks for being.
Thanks,
for
Jim
having us.
so
Atterholt,
much.
everybody. Big round of applause for Jim. All right, there you go, dear. You're going to read that, and I'm going to hopefully there's a bathroom open for me, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Yes.
Go ahead, read it slow.
So, talking about getting